So believe it or not, Tom Hardy did not invent the Shearling jacket. Now I know for me this came as a bit of a shock because over the last decade, I've watched Tom make the Shearling jacket cool. I mean, the guy tormented Batman in The Dark Knight Rises. He single-handedly defended the British in his Spitfire as they fought backwards at Dunkirk. And who can forget that time he swept into 5 guys and picked up a hamburger looking amazing in a Shearling jacket. Seriously though, Tom is a great actor, but he didn't invent the Shearling jacket. In fact, he didn't make it stylish, he's just riding the coattails of the guys that came before him. So what's the story with the Shearling jacket? What exactly is Shearling? And why are Shearling jackets so stylish? Well, gentlemen, that's the subject of today's video. So shearling is nothing more than sheepskin with the wool still attached. Men and women have been wearing this as clothing for thousands of years. Some of the earliest recordings of shearling being worn are found in ancient Greek writing, ancient Roman literature, and we see that shearling was extensively used by the Mongols. Yeah, those horseback warriors that conquered most of Asia and parts of Europe, well, they recognized and leveraged the insulating properties of shearling 1,000 years before Ugg boots. Shearling was also popular in Turkic groups, and it wasn't just used for clothing, it was also used for bedding, it was used for tents, it was used in any type of situation in which insulation was important. In Northern Europe, it's noted that the Vikings loved shearling not only for its insulating properties, but also it made armor a lot easier to wear. Seriously, for metal helmets, for breastplates, any piece of metal, yeah, you don't want that touching the skin. A nice shearling liner goes a long way in making sure that thing felt better. And it probably also helped with softening the impact of a blow. Now, as a clothing material, shearling continued to be used for hundreds of years, but it was at the turn of the 20th century that another invention all of a sudden brought shearling to the forefront. Now, before I reveal that invention, I want to introduce you to today's sponsor, Keeps. All right, gents, so here's the deal. If you are starting to lose your hair, you need to check out Keeps. Keeps is an online service that makes it easy and affordable for men to treat male pattern baldness from the comfort of their home. Gents, with Keeps, you get clinically proven treatments to address hair loss and boost hair regrowth delivered right to your door in discreet packaging. Gents, to get started, you complete an online consultation. They're going to match you with a treatment plan tailored to address your hair loss concerns. And gents, at any point, you can adjust, you can pause, you can cancel your plan. But the key here, gents, is to get started as soon as you notice hair loss. Gents, if you want to keep your hair, you need to get started with Keeps. And gents, if you need more information, just go over to their website. They've served over 1 million men. They've got 5-star reviews right there with before and after pictures. By using the link in the description of today's video, you're going to get the best deal on the web. All treatment plans are personalized, delivered right to your door in discreet packaging, and it's affordable. So again, gents, if you're seeing any of the signs of hair loss, check out Keeps. The link is in the description. Go over to keeps.com/RMRS. So what's the invention that brought shearling to the forefront of men's style? If you haven't guessed it yet, gents, it was the airplane, aka flight. Because here's the deal. As you fly higher, guess what? The temperature drops. We're talking well below freezing. Now, initially, planes weren't going too high, but then World War I started, and all of a sudden, money and innovation was put into the world of flight, and all of a sudden, we started seeing stronger engines, faster planes, all of them gaining a higher altitude. It was at this point that pilots started looking for a garment that was somewhat compact that could keep them warm at these cold altitudes. Now, in the world of flight jackets, there's a wide variety of options out there, but specifically today, we're going to be talking about the shearling options. The first shearling flight jacket I want to talk about is the B-3 bomber jacket. Now, this jacket was first introduced by the U.S. military in the early 1930s, and as the name implies, it was for their bomber crews that were flying at extremely high altitudes. And when I'm talking high, 25 to 35,000 feet. That's what the B-17 would go up to, and this was in an unpressurized cockpit that was incredibly cold. Now, despite the bulk, because yes, they were big and heavy, these shearling jackets were loved. They were prized because of how warm and how well they actually worked. They had a wide sheepskin collar that can be turned up. They had adjustable straps on the neck, on the waist, and sometimes even on the cuffs to be able to keep the heat in. And even though they were bulky, the outside was relatively smooth and you could still move around in an aircraft. In fact, fighter pilots, they were escorting the bombers flying at high altitudes themselves. Oftentimes, these guys chose to wear the jackets as well. Now, not to be outdone, the RAF, yes, the Royal Air Force, they had their own jacket introduced as well a little bit later, late 1930s, early 1940s, depending on who you talk to. In any case, it was very similar to the B-3 bomber jacket, but with a few key distinctions. One, and I have no idea why, it had a little bit of a slimmer fit, and the other one that was very noticeable is that the shearling had a ginger leather-like color to it. And the RAF jacket also had leather-bound seams. And it just makes sense. You got to have that more streamlined fit so that you don't get caught on anything. Now, what if you want a shearling jacket that's a little bit more rugged looking, but you want to stick with that British heritage? Well, look no further than the Irvine flying jacket. This one was introduced well before World War II. It was actually made for an open cockpit. It had a wider collar, a zipper front, and overall had a more rugged appearance. And the jacket gets its name because it was made by the Irvine Airchute Company. Another variation of the shearling jacket loved by aviators is the mountain lamb shearling jacket. Now, mountain lamb specifically refers to sheepskin that has been processed to straighten and flatten the wool fibers. With the fibers treated like this, what it does is it gives it a really soft, glossy, very luxurious type of look and feel. Now, usually because these jackets were double insulated, they were incredibly warm, but they are also incredibly expensive, and it's hard to find them nowadays, unless you're willing to spend at least a few $1,000s. And gents, I'll be straight up here and say it. If you want a good shearling jacket that looks amazing, is going to stand up to the test of time, and every time you put it on, you're going to feel like $1,000,000, guys, you're going to have to shell out some serious money. These jackets in general are not going to be mass manufactured. I mean, yeah, you do have some runs, but they're usually typically only a few hundred jackets because the demand isn't super high. But if you want a jacket that is going to have you stand out from the crowd, yeah. Seriously, let's bring up Bane's jacket from The Dark Knight Rises. As soon as I saw him in this jacket, I'm like, oh my. I mean, yes, we know that Tom Hardy is a well-built actor, but when he put this jacket on, all of a sudden, he came off as bigger, as stronger, as more intimidating. And they doubled down on its design because of the overall length. Notice the length. This is a trench coat type of style, and he always wears that neck piece up high. It just makes him look more intimidating by changing his overall silhouette. Another shearling jacket design that I really like is going to be Ryan Gosling's jacket in Blade Runner 2049. Now, I know it's not truly a shearling jacket, but if you look up at the top area, I think they did use shearling to actually give it that overall look. The outside of it, I believe, was cotton on the original jacket. On the inside, they may have used shearling. So these were custom made, but if you look around, you can actually find companies that are making replicas of them. But again, if you go this route, understand you're going to probably be spending a good amount of money for a jacket. You just really want to make sure that you get quality when it comes to an outer piece like a shearling jacket. So all that being said, what makes a shearling jacket so stylish? Well, first up, it's a luxury item. The materials used to make a shearling jacket are relatively expensive compared to a lot of other jackets out there, including regular leather jackets. So if somebody's going to be working with this, they probably want to make sure, hey, whoever's buying this from me is going to be spending a lot of money. They want to make sure the design, the fit, everything is spot on. And again, that's why I'm saying if you're going to grab this type of jacket, make sure that it's a true shearling jacket. You don't want to get an imitation. The reason being is when they use those lower cost materials, not only do you lose, I think, the overall feel, the fit, but they don't pay as much attention to the design. Whenever you're using higher quality, more expensive materials, you spend more time making sure the design is right, because as a manufacturer, you don't want to produce something that no one's going to want and is not going to look right when, it ends up being built. Next up, let's talk about the material itself. So shearling is a form of suede. It's going to be that inside layer of the skin. It's just got that soft, it's got texture, it's got depth. All of this in menswear. A lot of times we wear things that it's very thin, or maybe it has a sheen to it. You know how you can see something that's cheap and it just looks cheap? A lot of this is association, and shearling is associated with luxury. So when people see a shearling jacket, they see not just a leather jacket, but something high quality about the overall material and the build, the construction. And that right there just drips with luxury, with expense, with, hey, this is something of high quality. Next up, let's talk about heritage, history. It goes a long way. There's a reason why leather materials are still viewed as luxury, as high-end, because they were expensive. And this was something that the majority of mankind, for most of human history, could not actually even afford. So these were things that nowadays we live in a time period that pretty much anyone can afford a leather pair of shoes, maybe even a leather jacket if they save up. But it wasn't always the case. And so these materials are still viewed by many people, and in many societies, we look at them as something that's a luxury, as something that only the rich, the powerful were able to own. So because of that rich heritage, of that association, these type of materials, these pieces of clothing are still viewed at in a very positive light by most people. And let's talk about functionality. So for me, this is one of the most important things about fashion. Yeah, you want to look good, but for me, it's all about function. And when it comes to keeping a man warm, that's why it was picked by pilots. Nowadays, they got synthetic materials that can do the same job and are lighter, and I get it why they've switched over. They're also a lot less expensive, but shearling, to this day, is still one of the warmest jackets that a man can afford, and it just looks good. And again, it's functional. It insulates. It keeps you warm in a variety of different situations. Seriously, even the inner lining wool, in case you didn't know, can actually absorb about half its weight in water and still feel dry and insulate you and keep you warm. And let's talk about how it's a statement piece. When you look at the majority of men and the jackets they're wearing, you're going to have performance materials. You're going to have modern jackets out there. Occasionally, you're going to have a guy wearing a pea coat, an overcoat. Yeah, those look good. Those are stylish. But the Shearling jacket, this type of coat is relatively rare. You have to look around. I mean, you could have 1,000 guys out there and maybe 1 or 2 will be wearing a Shearling jacket. I know it's regional. Maybe down in Australia, you guys have more of them because you got sheep everywhere, more sheep than people. I think that's in New Zealand too. But in the majority of the world, if you were to wear a good looking Shearling jacket that fits you well, this is a statement piece that you will keep in your wardrobe for the rest of your life. And every time you wear it, you're probably going to get a compliment if it fits you well, if it just enhances your natural masculinity. Now, speaking of natural masculinity, have you ever wondered why cowboys are so stylish? Guys, it's more than the boots. It's more than the jeans. I cover it all in this video right here where I break out why are cowboys so stylish. If you enjoyed today's video, you are going to love this one. Boom, right there. Yeah, go check it out.